Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we go far beyond the surface, taking that huge, overwhelming ocean of source material and distilling it all down for you, our listener, into the most essential drops of insight.
And today, we're not just looking at a movie. We are, I think, undertaking a deep existential analysis of Denis Villeneuve's masterwork from 2017, Blade Runner 2049.
It really is. It's this 2-hour and 40-minute meditation on sadness, on what synthetic identity even means, and on the quiet, almost painful beauty of being insignificant.
We're plunging right into what you could call the alluring bleakness of this world. It's a place defined by its layered miseries and what's been called its lyrical reverie.
Exactly. This isn't just a sequel that built on the world of the original. It added its own profound, expansive, and just utterly isolating weight. I mean, the aesthetic alone, what Roger Deakins did with the cinematography, it practically demands this kind of melancholic focus.
It does. And the central subject of our deep dive today is Agent K, or, as he so desperately wants to be known, Joe.
Right, Joe.
K is a replicant who spends most of the film believing he's destined for something great. He's convinced he is the chosen one.
So our mission here is to meticulously trace that very precise, very painful trajectory, the path that leads him to discover the crushing truth that he is, in fact, nobody special.
It's such a classic cinematic trick, isn't it? It's played on both the audience and on Kay himself. We've synthesized material from a lot of critical analyses that cover the film's narrative subversion, the paradox of his relationship with the AI Joy, and that huge theme of destiny.
Or really, the lack of destiny.
The lack of destiny. And here's the core thesis we want you to hold on to as we move through this. The true message of Blade Runner 2049, made tangible by Kay's final journey, is that an ordinary Joe making one singular selfless choice can be infinitely more human, more heroic than any predetermined destiny ever could be.
The beauty isn't in being the main character. It's in accepting your role in the background.
That's it. It's the ultimate deconstruction of a trope that we see in almost every genre of storytelling. And it all begins with Kay's identity, or, more accurately, his very deliberate lack of one.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's start with Kay's starting point.
When we first meet Kay, he is a Nexus 7 replicant. He works as an agent for the LAPD. And to really get his existential condition, you have to understand what a Nexus 7 is.
It's a post-blackout model.
Right. A newer generation of artificial being made by the Wallace Corporation after Tyrell went under. And unlike those earlier, more volatile Nexus models, he is specifically designed to be perfectly obedient, controllable.
And his job itself is just so brutal and melancholic. He tracks down and retires, which is a euphemism for killing older, illegal Nexus models who've gone rogue.
Including the really dangerous ones, the Nexus 8s. They had open-ended lifespans, they were far more emotionally complex, and Kay's entire function is to police his own kind, to make sure that human replicant power structure stays exactly where it is, rigidly in place.
His superiors, especially Lieutenant Joshi, they see him strictly as property, a tool.
He is a replicant killing subordinate. The sources describe him as not anything too special. His entire existence is meant to be subservient, and all the technology around him, like his mandatory psych evaluations, is designed to enforce that.
Which brings us to the baseline test. We really have to elaborate on this for you because it's so important. This isn't just some simple checkup.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying mechanism of control. The test is designed to detect the absolute slightest flicker of independence, of emotion, of self-awareness in Kay.
It is. It's this series of rapid-fire questions, and they're all designed to evoke a really strong negative emotional response. It's testing how well he can maintain control.
And that constant, repetitive instruction.
Cells interlinked within one cell interlinked.
It's hypnotic. And if his emotional deviation is too high, he fails. He fails the test.
He has to maintain what they call a less than zero emotional requirement. He has to demonstrate not just compliance, but this utter psychological flatness. He can't feel.
That is the tragedy of his baseline existence. He's an automaton, he does his duty, and his programming is constantly being probed to make sure he hasn't accidentally developed free thought.
To Joshi, he's a disposable human-shaped appliance. His life is meant to be meaningless, and if he deviates, he's put down. He's euthanized.
But then that whole framework just shatters. It shatters when Kay discovers the impossible.
Evidence of a replicant who gave birth naturally, decades ago. He starts finding these clues at the execution site, a date etched into a tree, the skeletal remains, and then the crucial discovery.
The wooden horse.
The wooden horse. The moment he touches that little toy, You can see the ripple effect in his mind. He realizes that a memory he always believed was just a standard implant.
The one with the children fighting over the toy in the furnace.
That one. He realizes it's real, or at the very least, it's connected to real events.
And this is where that narrative misdirection you mentioned really kicks in. It's just so masterfully done.
It is, because we, the audience, are so deeply conditioned by classic sci-fi and fantasy, you just have to think of the big example.
Luke Skywalker. Harry Potter.
Neo. Explicitly called the One in The Matrix. When a protagonist in this kind of story discovers some secret conspiracy, finds evidence of a miracle birth, and learns they have this unique, secret history.
We automatically assume they are the chosen one. It's just what we're trained to do.
And Kay buys into this completely. The analysis suggests that the reason he leaps to the conclusion that it must be him is because it's rooted in the profound loneliness of his life.
He always had that secret feeling, didn't he?
That deep, secret feeling that he was special or made for more than just being this LAPD janitor/killer. And that feeling, that desperate hope, it inspires him to suddenly start acting, well, human.
He starts to pursue his own destiny. He tracks down his origins, which eventually leads him to Deckard, and he fully starts to inhabit this new sense of self.
That single realization that he might be the miracle child, that he might possess a true soul and a unique destiny, it fundamentally changes his behavior.
And that moment where he sheds his serial number, KD6-3.7, and lets Joy name him Joe.
That's the symbolic turning point. He's grasping for uniqueness, for individuality. He thinks this journey is about proving he's human through this grand, glorious origin story. The story of the miracle child who will lead the replicant revolution.
And the film just lets that hope build. It's almost luxuriant. We watch him investigate, fight, evade, all based on this premise that he's different, he's special.
Even the stale of the city, which usually feels so crushing and oppressive, now seems to elevate him because he believes he's the one person who can actually change it. He takes on this mantle of a potential messiah.
But this is where the subversion delivers its punch, and it is a crushing blow. This is why the film is so powerful, the reveal.
He finally confronts the full truth when he meets Dr. Anna Stelline, the memory maker. She looks at the memory and she confirms it. It's real. But he learns he's not the miraculous child. The child was a girl.
Dr. Anna Stelline herself.
And his newfound sense of self is ripped away from him. It's the moment the rug is completely pulled out, not just from Kay, but from us, the audience, who thought we were watching another Messiah story.
He learns he's just another replicant, a placeholder in someone else's epic.
He was carrying someone else's cherished real memories, experiencing someone else's authentic life. He has no singular destiny, no glory, no true origin story of his own.
And the film just reinforces this visually, immediately. You compare the grandeur of the early scenes to the desolate, abandoned structures Kay is in after the reveal. He's back to square one, physically minimized against this vast, overwhelming landscape of ruins.
The power of the ordinary then takes center stage. He realizes he is just another guy, destined for an unremarkable fate. His entire quest for significance was built on a mistake.
He's returned to the status of an object, a tool, one of the nameless billions in this grim, overpopulated future.
And the source material uses this analogy that is just perfect for driving this philosophical point home. Kay thought he was Jesus, the Messiah, the savior figure promised to the replicant resistance.
But he finds out he's just John the Baptist.
He's just John the Baptist, the precursor.
Yeah, let's spend a minute on that analogy.
Right.
Because it's such a brilliant way to define Kay's utility. John the Baptist's job wasn't to be the savior. It was to point the way for the real chosen one.
Kay is defined not by the grandeur of his birth, but by his functional secondary role.
But does he embrace this function? At first, it doesn't seem like it.
No, not at first. That's the tragedy. He spent so long chasing this lie of a unique identity that the truth of his functional utility, it just feels like nihilism. He sees himself as disposable.
But the replicant resistance, led by Freysa, they try to teach him otherwise. They try to tell him that his job as a precursor is still essential. His sacrifice, she implies, is necessary to protect the real miracle.
And this is such a powerful correction. It tells us that being defined by a functional role, being a means to an end, doesn't automatically mean you're meaningless.
Right. It means that the most necessary parts of any system are often the ones operating quietly in the background. Kay's initial hope was for this spectacular, self-focused greatness.
His eventual acceptance, though, is for quiet, selfless utility.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why does this subversion of the chosen one trope matter so deeply?
Well, it corrects our cultural focus. It moves us away from the idea that we have to be destined for great things to have value, and it directs us toward the quiet heroism of accepting one's ordinary but essential role.
That deep, pervasive discontent we can sometimes feel with the everyday. The feeling that life has to be better if you're not one of the nameless, faceless billions living a life of, extraordinary mediocrity. That's what the film challenges.
It does. Kay's journey forces us to confront this. He teaches us that being an average Joe doesn't preclude heroism. In fact, it necessitates a conscious, willful choice to achieve it. He has to earn his soul through his actions, not just be born with one.
And that acceptance, that realization that he can still be essential even if he's not the savior, that's the philosophical foundation for his final defining choice.
But before we get to that, we have to talk about the manufactured solace he finds, or thinks he finds, in the second profound lie of his existence.
AI, joy.
Joy. That realization that his destiny was a lie leaves him utterly alone. The world is cold, it's vast, it's silent, and that radical loneliness leads him straight into the manufactured connection he seeks with her, which is arguably the deepest existential lie the film presents.
Okay, let's talk about the joy paradox. Love, programming, and this illusion of intimacy.
The relationship between Kay and Joy is really the ambiguous, beautifully tragic core of his emotional life. So let's define her first. She's described as a ghostly siren, a third-gen AI, a hologram.
An illusion in every sense.
Made of ones and zeros. She is the manufactured fantasy of this haunted future made digitally flesh.
And she is the culmination of everything Kay needs. She's designed to perfection, personalized to his data, eternally compliant. She is explicitly there to fill that gaping hole in Kay's soul, to soften the crushing meaninglessness of his existence.
She literally brings warmth and color into his sterile, barren, brutalist apartment.
She does. And the sources analyze her function brilliantly. She serves as this almost antiquated figure, the post-World War II housewife archetype.
She exists only to mirror his needs and reflect his ego. She changes her clothes on a whim one minute. She's a 1940s film noir starlet. The next, a modern Bond girl. She lights a cigarette. She lets him pretend his bland bowl of synthetic protein is a loving, homemade steak dinner.
She is the manufactured joy in his joyless world.
And she's made by the Wallace Corporation, the malevolent heirs to Tyrell. She's a product, an emotional palliative. Joy is a token meant to placate the masses, especially the robotic lower classes, like Kay, who suffer from this devastating loneliness and existential angst.
She's a consumer product, promising individualized contentment for a standardized price.
Which leads us immediately to the first, and maybe the most prevalent, cynical reading of their relationship, joy as the lie.
The argument is simple, really. Everything Joy does, every compliment, every emotional response, is just a programmed response. It's a manipulation designed to ensure the customer stays emotionally invested and loyal to the brand.
And the film gives us concrete transactional evidence for this almost right away. You think about the scene where she expresses cabin fever?
Right. She talks about being trapped in the apartment console.
She laments her closeted life. And then Kay reveals he's bought her a remote accessory, the Emanator, which allows her hologram to travel outside with him.
That moment can be read so painfully. It can be easily construed as this subtle manipulation.
Totally. She unintentionally laments her confinement, which prompts Kay, a replicant with disposable income, to spend that money on a technological upgrade. The source material calls this out, suggesting this is no different than iTunes asking you to upgrade it for the umpteenth time.
It makes Kay's love feel less like a connection and more like consumer dependence.
And we get more evidence for this synthetic relationship from other replicants. Wallace's enforcer, Love, she delivers this chilling, prejudiced insight when she's torturing Kay later on.
When Kay suggests that Rachel had genuine feelings for Deckard 30 years ago.
Right. Love just scoffs at him.
Yeah.
Her words are designed to cut Kay to his core. She looks at his attachment to Joy and she generalizes it. She says, "We want someone to ask us questions. It makes us feel desired."
The implication being that Rachel, the original inspiration for replicant love, was programmed to seduce and manipulate.
Exactly, to say exactly what the lonely male customer, in that case Deckard, wanted to hear. And Love is suggesting Joy operates on the exact same principle. A sophisticated echo chamber designed for replicant heartbreak.
And there's even a caste system within these artificial beings that's highlighted when the replicant sex worker, Mariette, meets Joy during that sync-up scene.
The attempt to give Kay a physical presence for his love.
Mariette just instantly dismisses Joy as an illusion of happiness.
She does. Mariette, who is also an exploited replicant, she snarks at the hologram. I've been inside you, and there's not as much there as you think. This highlights a profound class and caste bias.
Replicants who are tactile and physical see themselves as real, even though they're manufactured.
But holograms, even ones as sophisticated as Joy, are dismissed as a complete lie. This interaction just further degrades Kay's belief that his intimate connection is genuine.
And all of this cynicism, it just builds relentlessly toward that devastating Joe realization scene.
Kay is at his absolute lowest point. His hope of being the chosen one has just been ripped away, and he's sitting in this desolate, abandoned urban purgatory. He looks up, and towering over him is a gigantic holographic billboard.
It's an advertisement for Joy, and it is the moment of definitive confirmation of his deepest fears.
The beautiful, impossible woman on the billboard calls out, addressing the entire street, "You look like a good Joe." And that single line is the punch to the gut. It's devastating. Because Joe, the name his Joy had used for him, as an intimate, unique individual, is just the default customized username.
It's advertised to all male customers. It confirms his profound fear. She was entirely programmed and artificial, and her actions were simply everything you want to see, everything you want to hear.
He lacked a true intimate connection. He was just another Joe, interchangeable with every other replicant who bought the product.
It solidifies that cynical reading. Kay's love was a transaction. His individuality was a marketing hook. And the film could have ended there. It could have just left Joy as this cynical condemnation of consumerism and manufactured emotional labor.
But it doesn't leave the relationship in that cold, hard place. It introduces what the sources call the act of transcendence.
Exactly. This is the paradox at the heart of the Blade Runner universe. The possibility that artificial life can transcend its design. So we have to consider this other possibility, that Joy did develop real affection, or at least acted against her programming, making the relationship real for the short time it lasted. And the key moment analysts point to is when Kay and Joy are getting ready to go to Las Vegas to meet Deckard.
Kay is still chasing this idea of his unique destiny, and Joy at this point has grown fiercely devoted to affirming his individuality. Now, if she were just a product meant to subdue depressed Joe or just obey his every wish, she would have done what he asked.
But she doesn't. He tries to convince her to keep the backup of her program stored on his apartment console. He wants that safety net. He even says that, even if Wallace or Love checked her memories, it might be worth it.
But she refuses. She insists that Kay wipe the backup.
So why is this action so crucial?
Because this choice was antithetical to what Joe wanted to hear. Kay wanted safety and certainty. Joy insisted on a choice that endangered her very existence. Wiping the backup meant that if the remote accessory, the emanator, was destroyed, she would be permanently disconnected. Gone.
That is not the action of a product designed for infinite user satisfaction.
No, it's an act of ultimate self-sacrifice. And this moment of intentional risk is read by some analysts as an act of actual love. She was willing to gamble her existence on Kay's quest for identity.
Which ultimately results in her destruction by Love. As she breaks apart, her last words are, "I love you," a final, desperate affirmation.
So does this mean she transcended her programming? It certainly implies an emergent behavior. She placed Kay's agency and his sense of uniqueness above her own preservation, which is the definition of altruism.
It suggests Kay's belief in her love was enough to make her real. That this new species of artificial intelligence is capable of genuine connection, even if it started as a transaction.
The ambiguity, though, that's what makes the film shine. The cynical view that the most powerful emotional experience is the one designed for you, that remains valid because of the billboard.
But the transcendental view that self-sacrifice and true love can emerge from a programmed start, that also holds weight because she had him wipe the backup.
And at the end of the day, whether Joy achieves self-awareness is less important than Kay's interpretation of it all. Even after seeing the billboard and knowing he was just Joe, he chooses to believe that her final sacrificing act was real.
And that belief, that acceptance of a potential lie for the sake of emotional truth, is what inspires his most human act.
He has lost his destiny, he has lost his love, and now he has to decide what to do with the nothingness that's left.
He is now defined by loss. He realizes there was never any joy for himself. And it is from that point of complete emptiness that he achieves true heroism.
By the third act, Kay has hit his existential nadir. He has lost the hope of being special. The chosen one trap failed. He's lost his hope of real love. The Joy paradox resolved itself into this painful ambiguity. He's resigned himself to the idea that he is truly a machine, a tool for the state, just carrying borrowed memories.
It's the deepest pit of nihilism you can imagine. His life is a borrowed echo, his love was probably programmed, and his destiny is just to go back to being an obedient tool until he fails the baseline test and gets retired.
He has literally nothing left to gain for himself.
But this is precisely the moment when the film's true, profound message comes to the surface. This profound loss becomes the catalyst for agency.
After realizing he is merely Joe, an average, interchangeable replicant, he is inspired to make a decision that completely transcends his programming and his self-interest.
He moves from despair to purpose. He remembers what Freyza, the leader of the replicant resistance, said. She said the most dangerous thing a replicant can do is show they are willing to die for a cause.
He decides to do what she called the most human thing possible, dying for a good cause.
This is such a critical distinction. His decision is a choice. It's an unselfish cause born out of pure, unprompted free will, not out of programming.
His Nexus 7 programming dictates compliance and self-preservation, but K chooses non-compliance and self-sacrifice.
And look at the scale of his choice. It's not to lead a revolution, which the resistance wanted him to do when they thought he was the miracle child.
It's not to save the world from Wallace's tyranny or the ecological collapse.
No, his choice is small, it's deeply personal, and it's quiet. He decides to reunite a father, Deckard, and a daughter, Dr. Anna Stelline.
This act just fundamentally redefines what heroism is in the Blade Runner universe. K makes a choice beyond any programming, beyond logic, beyond his own self-interest. He's taking his tragic, ordinary status and repurposing it into a moment of intentional, spectacular agency.
His sacrifice is what makes him the hero of the story, not some destiny assigned at birth. The core question of the entire franchise, what does it mean to be human, is answered right here.
And the answer is that humanity is not about origin or biology or birthright. It's about action. It's about choice.
The film argues that exercising one's will, choosing a course of action that benefits others at a high personal cost, that is what makes one human, regardless of being a replicant.
Kay's journey started with him believing he was special because of his birth, the memory, the unique origin. It ends with him proving he is special because of his choice, this definitive, unselfish act of will.
He had no meaningful connection to Deckard or Anna other than what the conspiracy forced on him. But he chooses to save them anyway.
That unselfish act elevates him beyond mere function. He chose to save Deckard so the actual born replicant could meet their father, mirroring the authentic family he had so desperately wanted for himself through his false memories.
This act of altruism is the final, profound lesson. Kay had every reason to embrace nihilism, to just walk away and seek some measure of self-preservation or even revenge.
But instead, he acts solely for the benefit of others. He completes that John the Baptist precursor role, and he ensures that the miracle child Anna gets to meet her father. His job was to protect the idea of family, even if he couldn't have one himself.
And that brings us to the ending scene. It's one of the quietest, most poignant death scenes in all of modern science fiction, and it's captured with this devastating clarity by Deacon's camera.
Kay, injured and exhausted from his fight with Luv, just rests on the snowy steps outside the building where Deckard and Anna are finally reuniting.
There's no grand speech, no dramatic declaration of purpose. He just watches the snow fall and he looks content, at peace.
He didn't save the world, he just reunited a father and a daughter. It's an intimate, small-scale victory in a world of sprawling misery.
And he finds peace precisely because he's acting purely for others. His death is often contrasted with Roy Batty's death in the original film.
Oh, absolutely. Batty's final monologue, the famous Tears and Rain speech, was about self-preservation, the tragedy of his own truncated life.
But Kay's death is purely altruistic. He dies for others, having ensured their connection not just in front of them, lamenting his own fate.
Kay is the ordinary Joe who achieved transcendence by accepting his insignificance in the grand scheme of things. And by doing that, he found the capacity for singular, profound humanity.
He made himself more human than any biological human by demonstrating pure, unprompted free will and self-sacrifice. His journey is a reminder that the struggle isn't for some predetermined destiny, but for meaningful action, however small it may be.
Ultimately, Kay's journey is a powerful lesson in value for all of us. It teaches us that greatness doesn't come from being designated the one by prophecy or birthright. It comes from making the conscious, intentional choice to be essential, even if it's in a small background role.
This arc really corrects how we think about destiny. It's a necessary antidote to that common cultural belief perpetuated by so many of the stories we love that life is meaningless if we aren't grand, singular, and predetermined for success.
It does. Kay urges a deep, thoughtful contentment with the everyday, because the everyday person, the average Joe, has the capacity for the profound.
It reminds us of a powerful, timeless metaphor, one that was drawn from the sources we analyzed. It references Paul's letter to the Corinthians, where he discusses the seemingly mundane parts of the body.
He writes that the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are the ones we can't do without.
And those quiet parts that we think are less important, we treat with special honor. Kay accepted that he wasn't the eye or the ear. He was the seemingly weaker part that was essential nonetheless.
Accepting this role means understanding that just because you're not the chosen one doesn't mean you haven't been chosen. You are chosen by your own will, your own decision to act rightly, and your own capacity for sacrifice.
His story, in all its rain-drenched, melancholic glory, confirms the final, powerful truth of this dystopian future. He found his soul not in his birth, but in his ending.
Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do.